How has Trump administration undermined global effort to combat global warming? The Trump administration, in its second term beginning in 2025, has implemented a series of policies and executive actions that critics argue significantly undermine global efforts to combat climate change and global warming. These moves prioritize fossil fuel production, deregulation, and skepticism toward climate science, often reversing progress made under previous administrations. While the administration frames these as efforts to reduce economic burdens, boost energy independence, and correct perceived overreach, they have drawn widespread criticism from environmental groups, scientists, and international partners for weakening U.S. leadership, increasing emissions, and eroding multilateral cooperation. First, withdrawal from the Paris Agreement and retreat from international climate frameworks. The Trump administration on January 20, 2025, announced the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement on Inauguration Day, marking the second time under Trump, positioning the U.S. as one of the few nations, alongside Iran, Libya, and Yemen, not participating in this global pact to limit warming to well below 2 Celsius degrees. This process involves a 12-month waiting period, but it signals a rejection of binding emissions targets and international accountability. Discussions have also emerged about potentially abandoning the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which could isolate the U.S. from future negotiations and diminish its influence on global policy. Critics warn this has a domino effect, encouraging other nations like Argentina to reconsider their commitments, destabilizing worldwide consensus. The administration's rationale is that such agreements impose unfair economic costs on the U.S., but projections estimate this could raise U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by up to 36% above current policies by 2035, exacerbating global warming. Second, proposal to repeal the Environmental Protection Agency's 2009 endangerment finding. In a major deregulatory push announced on July 29, 2025, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, proposed eliminating the 2009 endangerment finding, which scientifically established that greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and methane from fossil fuels, endanger public health and welfare, providing the legal basis for regulating them under the Clean Air Act. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin argued the finding was flawed and unorthodox, imposing undue costs, and cited recent Supreme Court decisions to claim the agency lacks authority for broad regulations. If finalized, this would dismantle rules limiting climate pollution from power plants, vehicles, trucks, and oil and gas operations, effectively gutting much of the federal framework for addressing emissions. Environmental advocates, including the Natural Resources Defense Council and Center for Biological Diversity, have condemned it as prioritizing oil interests over science amid rising climate disasters, vowing legal challenges. This aligns with Project 2025 recommendations from the Heritage Foundation, further entrenching a rollback agenda. Third, rollback of domestic emissions regulations and boost to fossil fuels. The administration has aggressively targeted regulations aimed at reducing pollution and transitioning to clean energy. It has reversed limits on coal and gas plant emissions, replacing them with weaker standards like the proposed Affordable Clean Energy Rule. Trump administration has also ended tax credits for electric vehicles and halted incentives for renewables, while revoking electric vehicles mandates and challenging national tailpipe standards, while accelerating fossil fuel projects, including pipelines, by streamlining permitting and promoting drilling on public lands. The administration also rolled back over 100 environmental rules from the first term, with estimates suggesting thousands of additional deaths from poor air quality and dramatically higher emissions over 15 years. These actions are seen as abandoning communities to climate impacts like extreme weather and health risks, while critics argue they increase long-term electricity costs by delaying the clean energy shift. Fourth, halting international climate finance and support. The administration zeroed out U.S. contributions to the Green Climate Fund and other multilateral funds, depriving developing nations of resources for mitigation and adaptation. This reneges on commitments made under previous administrations, eroding trust in the U.S. as a global partner and hindering efforts in vulnerable regions facing rising seas and extreme weather. Combined with pulling the plug on UN climate processes, it represents a full retreat from financial leadership, potentially slowing global decarbonization. Fifth, targeting state-level climate policies. Through an April 2025 executive order, protecting American energy from state overreach, the administration directed the Attorney General to challenge state laws deemed burdensome to energy producers, such as New York's retroactive fines on emissions, Vermont's similar measures, and California's cap-and-trade program. The order frames these as discriminatory and unconstitutional, aiming to invalidate them to protect fossil fuel interests and lower energy costs. This interferes with progressive state actions on vehicle emissions and carbon pricing, undermining subnational efforts that have filled federal gaps and contributed to global reductions. Finally, censoring climate science and slashing research funding. The administration has erased climate data from federal websites, slashed funding for climate research, and appointed skeptics to key roles, politicizing science. A government report by skeptics downplayed carbon dioxide impacts, justifying rollbacks, while EPA staff dissenting against these policies faced administrative leave. This stifles evidence-based policy, weakening global scientific collaboration and adaptation strategies. These actions collectively accelerate the climate crisis, per analyses from groups like the World Resources Institute and American Progress, though supporters claim they foster economic growth. Legal battles and state-level resistance may mitigate some effects, but the long-term harm to global efforts remains substantial.